welcome to
The Dark Files. I'm Emily Sweaters.
And I'm Kasie Cardigan.
And today we
Yeah.
are going to learn about
I'm excited.
Typhoid Mary.
Yay!
Yay!
Not to be confused with Bloody Mary.
No.
Okay.
Very different people.
Okay, cool.
So
I'm excited.
Before we start our deep dive into this dark file, let's crack our claws.
And I actually waited this time. I didn't crack it early. All right, ready, Emily?
Yep.
Crack that claw. Woo!
So I'm actually this week drinking a pumpkin spice Vive, distributed by local brewery Braxton Brewing out of Covington.
I think so.
Covington.
And I'm drinking a 40 of White Claw that Emily bought on Saturday when we celebrated her birthday and brought it to my house and left it here.
Yes.
So I have a 40 of White Claw black cherry.
Yeah. 2 40s of White Claw are $5.70. That's a deal.
That's a deal. Because really, that's all you really...
Yeah.
I need maybe 2 of those and I'm feeling good.
Mm-hmm. All right. So.
Okay, first, Emily, I have to tell you something.
Okay.
I'm very super tired. So if I yawn, I'm not bored with your story.
You're fine.
I'm just warning you.
Okay.
Okay, I'm excited. Let's go.
Do you know anything about Typhoid Mary?
No, not gonna lie, even though you kind of told me, I still keep thinking it's Bloody Mary.
Okay.
So that's where I'm at.
To begin, I'm first going to explain what typhoid fever is.
Okay.
Okay. Because that's important to realize about Typhoid Mary. Okay, so typhoid fever is caused by a salmonella bacteria. 11 to 21 million people are diagnosed each year, but in the U.S., only around 350 per year. And most people who have typhoid fever current day, are people that have traveled out of the country and gone to places where maybe like water, sanitation, and like sewage isn't as like advanced technologically as ours.
Okay, I'm sorry. Did you say 11 million current day still get diagnosed with it?
Yep.
Okay.
Worldwide. But
Worldwide.
In the U.S., only about 350 per year.
Okay.
So it's most common in areas with poor food and water sanitation. And it's spread through sewage contamination of food or water through person-to-person contact. So that means that... What was that? Sorry.
I don't know what that was.
Sorry,
guys.
In order to spread it, it's usually contracted through people who are infected preparing food, but they haven't washed their hands.
Okay.
So like if you have salmonella and you're preparing food and you haven't washed your hands recently, it's spread through your poop. Okay, so if you don't wash your hands very good after you poop, it can still be on your hands, and then you prepare food.
And it gets that way. Is salmonella the same thing that they say you can get from eating raw cookie dough?
It is, but it's a different like strain.
Oh,
so
okay.
They're like, it's like a class of different bacteria. So that's one way you could get it is people who are infected preparing food but haven't washed their hands. Also, sewage contaminated with salmonella gets into your food or drink.
Okay.
Or if you have water that's contaminated that you like use to like wash like fruits or vegetables.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the most common ways that it's contracted. So currently, modern day, we have a vaccine for typhoid fever. So if you're going to a country where typhoid fever is still a thing, like, you know, if you travel out of the country, you can get that vaccine. It only lives in humans. It cannot be transmitted by animals.
Oh.
So you cannot give it to an animal cannot give it to you.
Fun fact.
And symptoms are fever, weakness, stomach pain, headache, diarrhea or constipation, cough, and loss of appetite.
God, that sounds miserable.
Yes. So if you get it, so let's say you travel someplace, get typhoid fever, and you haven't had the vaccine, it's treatable with antibiotics currently. Okay?
Uh-huh.
So there's some background on what typhoid fever is and how it is spread.
I guess I didn't realize that that's what it was.
Mm-hmm. So now we are going to go back in time to 1869.
Wait, sorry. Is typhoid fever the same thing as a plague? Are you going to talk about this?
I'm not, no.
Okay.
I don't think it was part of the plague.
Okay, I was just curious.
It wasn't.
Oh, you know what I'm thinking of? Yellow fever.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So 1869.
So we're going back to 1869. We're going to Ireland.
I love Ireland.
And Mary Mallon was born in 1869 in Ireland. And then she immigrated to the U.S. in 1884 when she was 15.
Okay.
Okay. So when she first got here, she worked in domestic positions for a wealthy family. So like as a servant or a laundress, like household, like cleaner, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then she became a cook. So she like worked her way up in these like really wealthy families' houses and became a cook. And a cook back in the day in a wealthy family who had like house servants and stuff, that was usually one of the better paid positions.
Okay. I guess that makes sense. You want to pay the people that are making your food well.
Yeah. And so she was working for really wealthy families in New York because when she immigrated, she came to Ellis Island, I guess just stayed.
Okay.
Okay. So,
Oh, Mary.
and in 1906, so she worked, and she like was very well, like respected, like people. So I always forget to quote my freaking sources. So I watched two YouTubes. Weird History. I love Weird History.
Okay.
And Drunk History.
Love it.
And on Drunk History, that they were saying that she was very famous for like peaches and ice cream. Like that was her like dessert, like her signature dessert.
Oh.
And I guess like back when that was like, like a specialty or like a treat or whatever. So she was like a really respected cook. And so she would get hired by all these wealthy families. And in 1906, she was working as a cook for Charles Henry Warren, a wealthy New York banker who was renting a home in Oyster Bay for the summer. So Oyster Bay is kind of like upstate New York a little bit, like a summer vacation spot.
Okay.
So he and all his family, all of his house servants are renting this house. And so all of a sudden, 11 people in the house get typhoid fever.
11?
11 people in the house. So between like the employees and like the wait staff and his family. And so back then, it was still fatal. Like if you got typhoid fever, 10% of people died.
Wow.
Yeah.
10%?
Yeah, 10% of cases were
Because
fatal.
I guess they didn't have like antibiotics?
Yeah, they didn't have antibiotics.
So would people just shit their brains to death?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is pre-germ theory too. Keep that in mind. And I'll explain that a little bit more in a moment. But people at this point in time, people still really had no idea like how diseases were contracted.
In 1906?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, okay.
We've come a long way.
We have come a long way. So, it was really rare for a wealthy family to get typhoid fever because remember, it's like poor sanitation, poor hygiene.
Oh, yeah.
So
and they're too bougie for that.
They're too bougie for that. So they hire like the health department to come in and like do all these tests. They test the soil and the pipes, the water, the toilets. They take all these things and they all test negative for the virus.
Okay.
Okay. So
they have enough money that they can hire people to come test all of this?
Yeah.
I guess they have enough money to staff an 11.
Yeah, and have a summer
or
home.
whatever. Yeah.
Okay, so George Soper. George Soper is, you don't know him.
Oh.
He's not like somebody you would know. He was
You don't know who I know, Emily.
He was a sanitary engineer, so kind of like a health department worker.
I knew that.
I didn't.
I'm just kidding.
Oh.
I didn't know that.
So
Jeez, no.
George Soper is assigned the case.
Okay.
So he goes, he's figuring out, like, this was tied to an outbreak of typhoid fever in several other well-to-do families in the area. And like I said before, it typically impacted people of lower socioeconomic status. So it was very odd that typhoid fever was all of a sudden breaking out in all these rich people's houses. Because they don't give a fuck about the poor people.
Yeah. Fair.
Okay. So then...
Wait, let me clarify that.
Yeah.
Not fair to not care about poor people's houses. I'm just
We
saying,
care about everybody's house.
given the time period, that makes sense that that's what would happen.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Just want to set that straight.
still currently.
Yeah. Okay.
That's probably still the case.
Okay.
Okay, so our buddy George Soper, he learns of an active outbreak of typhoid fever at a home on Park Avenue, and he goes to investigate it, and Mary is the cook there. Mm-hmm. So 2 servants at this house were hospitalized, and one of the daughters died.
Shit.
So Mary is the cook here, and he's starting to like connect the dots, the Soper guy, because he knew she was the cook at the other house.
Okay, so she was at the other house, and now she's at Park Avenue.
So she bounces around pretty frequently.
Oh, okay.
So she changes jobs pretty frequently, but because all these families know each other, they would like recommend her, be like, yeah, she's good, like whatever. So she have like a pretty good like referral base.
Okay.
So Soper goes in there and he's like, hey, like you're kind of the common thread here.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had typhoid fever at that house when you were the cook, and then we have it here and you're the cook. And he said he tried to be as diplomatic as possible, but then Mary became upset and threatened him with a carving knife.
Well, damn.
Yeah. So
he was on the case. Okay, sorry, but like I'm confused a little bit. So he was on the case in Oyster Bay.
Yeah, he's on the case on all of them. He's like, they asked him to investigate this outbreak.
Any case
in all of these wealthy homes.
Okay.
So then this Park Avenue one pops up.
So even if it's Park Avenue in Manhattan?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So he asks her to give him samples.
Sorry, everyone. My mother is calling me. Call you back later, Les.
He asks Mary for samples because at this point, they could test for the virus through feces.
He asked her for samples of her feces?
Yep.
I was going to say, would you not shit? But literally that's what they want you to do. So never mind.
Well, she said no.
Okay.
And he starts to get really suspicious of her. He's like, okay, if you don't have typhoid fever, just give me the sample.
Give me your poop.
Like, why is it that big of a deal? So he does a deep dive. And he goes through all these wealthy New York families and creates a 5-year history of her work. Of all the families that she's worked for, or most of them. And he discovered that she worked for all of the families who had outbreaks.
All of them?
All of them.
And how many families had outbreaks?
We don't really know.
Okay.
Because she would leave a job as soon as people started to get typhoid. And she would often change her name.
But wait, I thought you said she had a referral base.
She did. But when he went back to like go retrace it, it was very hard to figure out where she had been. So I don't know if they like, I don't know exactly know like if they knew what didn't know what her last name was or whatever, but like,
okay,
she was like, so she would change her name frequently. Maybe not every time she left a job, but she would like go by a different name.
Okay,
always went by Mary, but would change her last name.
Maybe. Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was really still trying to get her to like cooperate. She was being uncooperative, and stating that she believed that typhoid fever was everywhere and was in the water. So she had this like very weird belief about it. Like she was like, no, it's everywhere. It's not my fault. It's in the water in New York, yada, yada, yada. So this time, like in history, it was not known that people could be asymptomatic carriers.
This is so relevant to the coronavirus.
Isn't it so relevant? So even like doctors didn't know that a person could carry something and not show symptoms. And she didn't have any symptoms. She didn't have anything.
She didn't have anything at all. In all of those cases, she never had any of the symptoms.
She never had any
Dang.
symptoms. So George Soper, our buddy, he notifies the New York City Health Department and concluded that she had to have been the carrier, even though she had no symptoms. You know, she was linked to every outbreak that they could identify. And so despite the fact that they this time didn't know, she was like the first like asymptomatic carrier that was like researched. Of anything.
Wow.
Yeah. So he calls the health department. She was arrested.
She got arrested for that? She
got arrested as a public health threat and was forced.
Shut up. Oh my God.
She was forced into custody. She was taken to the Willard Parker Hospital and was restrained and forced to give samples.
When you say, you mean stool samples.
Stool samples.
AKA poop.
Urine samples. I think they also took like saliva samples, like swabs. I think they also swabbed her eyelids, if I'm remembering
correctly.
They
arrested her?
Yep, they arrested her as a public health threat because she wasn't complying with their wishes. Like their.
I guess that's true. They had asked her and
she was killing people.
I guess that's true. I forgot people died.
Yeah, people died. And lots of people got sick. So they analyze the samples and see that there's massive amounts of typhoid bacteria in her stool samples that indicated that the infection was in her gallbladder. So they proposed to her, like, hey, let's take your gallbladder out and see if that helps. She refused. And at this time, gallbladder removal was still, like any surgery in the early 1900s was dangerous.
So I kind of get why she's saying no.
So she said no because people were dying. People did die from that surgery at that time. So
and she doesn't feel sick, so it's not like she's in pain.
Yeah, she had no like real motivation. So under questioning, she admitted that she almost never washed her hands before cooking or after using the bathroom.
Ew!
So she was taking shits, not washing her hands, and then
did they have toilet paper back then? Did she use toilet paper?
I don't know, but that's how she was spreading it
because she had it. Didn't wash her
hands, and then was cooking for all these people. Did
she know that she was spreading it?
No. Well,
like, wouldn't you have caught on?
There's like controversy about that. My belief is yes, she did because she left every time there was an outbreak. Like she would bounce and like get a new job, but So and they think that she probably carried it with or caught it like on the journey to Ireland.
Oh,
from Ireland.
She caught it. Like she got the or whatever
and immigrating
on boat. Yeah, brought it. Oh, hold on, everyone. We're gonna take a quick pause because my Fesslers has arrived.
Fesslers Thursday.
Fesslers Thursday. Let's restart. Okay, guys. So I just got the Fesslers, and I thought I ordered 2 chocolate chip cookies, and I was like, man, that's expensive because it's $12 for 2 cookies, but it's a whole cookie pie for each of us.
This isn't a bad deal for $6.
No, it's huge.
Wow. Thanks, Kasie.
Yeah, no problems. And update, Emily also just got a text that Reading Road in Cincinnati is now being named President Obama Avenue.
President Barack Obama Avenue.
Why?
I don't know.
I guess we do have a Ronald Reagan Highway.
Yeah, I'm all about it.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, guys, sorry. Okay, so, Emily, we're in the middle of people. I hope whoever made my food washed their hands. Mm-hmm.
So, eek. This actually wasn't totally abnormal at the time.
To not wash your hands?
Yes, because germ theory. So germ theory is basically the idea that germs lead to disease.
Okay.
Right? So like, before they would think like, oh, it's because you're out in the cold or it's a full moon. Like they would have all these like different crazy, not crazy, but like unscientific explanations for diseases. And so germ theory was posited at this time. So people like knew about it, but not everybody believed it. These scientist guys are like, no germ theory, believe in it. And they're like, okay, that's probably a problem. So on March 19th, 1907, Mary was forcibly entered into quarantine on North Brother Island in New York.
On an island? They put her on an island?
She was quarantined in isolation in a little cottage.
I mean, that kind of sounds nice, though. For how long?
For 3 years.
Stop.
Uh-huh. And so, they were like trying to compromise with her. They were like, will you stop working as a cook? And she said no. Because for a poor, uneducated woman, that was the best money she could make.
Okay.
She's single, too. And
clearly because she wasn't washing her hands.
So she was kept in quarantine in a cottage from 1907 to 1910. Over the course of that time, 120 out of 163 stool samples came back as positive for typhoid.
Okay. 120 out of 163?
Yes.
Wonder why the other 43 weren't positive.
I don't know. So.
And it's still in her gallbladder.
That's what they think, yeah.
Okay.
She never believed that she was a carrier. She never accepted it. She never believed it. She was resistant the whole time. Because at the time...
Because she didn't believe in science?
She was the first asymptomatic carrier. Like, we know now that people, can have the flu and not have symptoms for a couple of days and then,
And carry it, yeah.
But then it was, like, totally new. So, I kind of get it because she was the first one and, like, she was probably thinking, what the hell? And also, like, you have to, like, look at the facts. Like, everybody you cook for gets typhoid fever.
Yeah, like, I understand it's at a time where it's, like, talking about this microscopic biology that you either don't understand and you can't see, and that's crazy. you know, but you also have to think literally every single person that you cook for gets sick.
Yeah. So I read on Wikipedia that she kind of somehow like snuck some of her stool samples to a private lab, and that those came back negative. I don't know if that's substantiated. I couldn't really find a lot to back that up outside of the Wikipedia article.
Okay, so this woman who is isolated on an island, I'm assuming it's like an island where, I don't know, I'm just like, in my head I'm picturing she's the only cottage on this island, but I'm sure that's not the case.
I mean, it was pretty isolated. She wasn't the only cottage, no.
Okay. Other people that are isolated are on there too. And like, then she went and got a private sample? Like, she paid for that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's what this said. And again, it's hard to substantiate a lot of this.
Fair. Okay.
But that's like a urban legend, I guess, or like something that was mentioned is that because there's also a lot of ethical things that we all talk about at the end that come into play with this. Okay. So
3 years.
2 years, 11 months.
Jesus.
So Eugene H. Porter was the New York State Commissioner of Health, and he changed the policy and said that disease carriers should no longer be kept in isolation against their will. And he said Mary could be released if she agreed to stop working as a cook and take reasonable steps to avoid transmitting typhoid to others, like washing her hands, following hygienic practices, etc. So on February 19th, I put 2010, but I meant 1910. On February 19th, 1910, Mary was released from quarantine and was able to go back to New York State. So she was on the island, and then she could go back to like the mainland.
Because she agreed to not cook?
She agreed. So I won't cook anymore, and I will wash my hands. Great. We love it.
Why didn't you agree to that 3 years ago?
I don't know.
Okay.
So upon her release, Mary began working as a laundress. However, it only paid $20 a week compared to the $50 a week she received as a cook.
Oh, wow. That's a big difference.
Big difference. And at one point, she wounded her arm and couldn't work at all for 6 months. Because I guess back in the day when you were a laundress, you'd like physically hand wash it on those like wash thingies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she couldn't work at all for 6 months. And this basically made her totally impoverished and destitute. So guess what Mary did?
Okay. I get to guess?
Yeah, guess what she did next?
Okay. I'm guessing she starts cooking on the side to make money.
Not even on the side.
Oh, okay. She just like does it full time as her job.
Yep. So she goes back to her old shtick of changing her last name. So her name is Mary Mallon. She went by Mary Brushoff, Mary Brown, like would always change in this last name.
Okay.
However, this time sorry, my mouth is full of cookie. Most of the hoity-toity families in New York know this bitch. I'm gonna hire her.
Oh, and she's still in New York.
Yeah, she's in New York. Okay. So they're like, no, we're like, you killed my daughter. No.
You gave me the shits for like 4 days.
Yes. So instead of like working in people's houses, she decided to pursue like more like commercial jobs. So like working in kitchens, working in hotels, working in like spa type things. Sorry, I got a notification. Kitchens, restaurants, spas, and like hotels. And almost everywhere she went, a typhoid fever breakout occurred.
Still?
Yes.
I thought she was supposed to be washing her hands.
Clearly she was not.
Jesus, Mary.
So in 1915, so she got released in 1910.
Mm-hmm.
So 1915, so only 5 years later, she started working at Sloan Hospital for Women in New York City, a maternity hospital. And soon, 25 people were infected and 2 were dead.
Shut it.
Yeah. The head doctor, so George Soper, from what I've been able to like gather, our health inspector guy, I think he was like the typhoid fever dude. Like,
he was the guy.
Yeah.
Like Dr. Fauci is?
Yeah,
okay.
Dr. Fauci. We love you, Dr. Fauci. Save us. So, Soper gets notified about this typhoid outbreak at this hospital. He comes up, and he's like, oh, shit.
He's probably, God damn it, Mary.
This is back. So, Mary bounces. She knows that they're onto her, so she flees the hospital and flees, like, the area, but authorities catch up to her, and she was returned to quarantine.
Stop.
Back on her little island on March 27th, 1915. And she remained in quarantine for the rest of her life.
No.
Yes.
No.
Uh-huh.
How long is that, though?
She was there from 1915 until 1938.
Shut up, Emily!
Yeah. Isn't
That is
wild?
so long.
So she had a private one-story cottage, and by 1918, they did allow her to make day trips to the mainland. So every now and then they give her like a day pass to go like run errands or go to the doctor or whatever.
How did she pay for her life?
I don't think she did. I think they must have funded it since they forced her into quarantine.
Do you think at some point she was kind of like, this is actually maybe a sweet gig?
And then a doctor came. So I think this island is where they would quarantine like other people too, like people with like smallpox or whatever.
What a fun island to be on.
And so a doctor did her internship on the island, like working with infectious diseases, and Mary served as her assistant. So she would like.
Well, there's a female doctor?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I think. Hold on, I can be wrong on that. I have to check my source, but that's what I wrote. I wrote she. So she died of pneumonia at the age of 69.
She didn't even ever die from typhoid.
No, she never had any symptoms. She died of pneumonia at the age of 69, and only 9 people attended her funeral.
Who attended it, I wonder?
I don't know. So she used so many aliases that it's hard to ascertain exactly how many people she infected and killed. Because it was hard to like trace her because she was really good at hiding. However, they believe that she infected. Hold on, let me find it. And this is the source that I'm looking at right now is from the National Library of Medicine and the National Institute of Health. So they did like a whole thing on her. So, oh my God, where is it? So she's believed to have infected 53 identified people with typhoid fever, and 3 of them died.
That's a lower number than I thought.
But they say that this number is probably low because, again, they had her
because she kept changing her name,
yeah.
And then she worked. Who knows how many people she infected when she worked for businesses?
Right, exactly. So I'd say it's way higher than 53, but 53 identified people and 3 of them died. So that is the story of Typhoid Mary.
That's interesting.
Isn't
as
that crazy?
Fuck.
It's actually really sad because she had to like live in isolation the last years of her life.
To be fair, though, it sounds like she didn't even try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's just really sad. Like, it's just very bizarre, and it reminds me a lot of what's going on now. Imagine if we were forced into quarantine for 3 years.
Well, it feels like that. But I guess we're pretty much like, okay, but no, let me think about this. But the difference between the quarantine now is like that it's spread so easily, whatever, you know, blah, blah, blah. You could go out in public and wear a mask. She just had to wash her goddamn hands after she went to the bathroom.
And not work as a cook. But I guess that was a big ask because she didn't have a lot of money. She was a single woman.
So her options were, okay, everyone, let's review her options. 1, wash her hands after she pooped.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that seems like the easiest option.
Yes.
Okay. 2, not work as a cook. Mm-hmm. That one was tricky because it clearly made, what'd you say, $50 versus $20, which is, I mean, that's a big difference. Mm-hmm. 3, have her gallbladder removed.
Right.
That one's the most extreme.
I agree, especially back then.
And if you can't even be sure if that's what's going to fix it. Because at that point, and guys, remember, if anybody remembers from the Blue People episode, I don't know science, but like, can your infection spread from your gallbladder to something else?
I would imagine.
So like, who's even to say if the gallbladder wasn't, you know?
Yeah.
Like if it was spread beyond the gallbladder.
So there's a lot of like ethical issues raised by this case. So
okay, bring them on.
some people will say instead of working with her to make her realize she was a risk factor, the state quarantined her twice, making her a laboratory pet. So some people say, like, you should have tried to, like, make her realize and see, and, like, and I imagine they probably did. I mean, I don't know, but a lot of people think it was unethical to force her into quarantine. And so George Soper, he wrote an article that was published in the paper, and that's where she got the nickname Typhoid Mary. And so people were, like, really mean to her. Like, she was spoken about, like...
Well, how would she even really know, though? Because she was quarantined.
I'm sure she got the fever. And so
He called her Typhoid Mary?
He did not call her Typhoid Mary, but, like, she got the nickname. Like, the press started, like, referring to her as that after he released, like, this write-up about her and, like, all the links to the typhoid outbreaks. So, I'm reading this directly from this article. Okay, this is a quote.
Okay.
Mary's case is a perfect example of how the healthcare system provokes social attitudes towards disease carriers, often associated with prejudice. This case highlighted the problematic nature of the subject and the need for an enhanced medical and legal social treatment model aimed at improving the status of disease carriers and limiting their impact on society. Probably the answer to the rhetorical question, was Mary Mallon a symbol of the threat to individual liberty or a necessary sacrifice to public health, is a single word: balance. After all, what Mary ever wanted was to be a good plain cook.
There was a lot in that quote.
Yes, there was a lot in that quote. So basically what they're saying is, like, it's not that we're trying to take away her liberties because she's a risk, right?
Individual liberty versus, like, common good.
Yes, which is really, I think, relevant to what's happening right now.
So,
like, it just reminded me a lot of coronavirus because, like, we could all be asymptomatic carriers.
Mm-hmm.
And but I don't give a fuck if I'm an asymptomatic carrier. It doesn't impact me at all, but it impacts people I care about, or it could impact a stranger on the street, right, if I pass it.
Right.
And so I think, like, wearing masks is, like, I mean, that's kind of like parallel to washing your hands. Like, just wash your fucking hands. You can go back to your life.
So do you think it was really that she just had to wash her hands?
I think that would have prevented a lot of it. I mean, yeah. Like,
how do you still not wash your hands after all that?
So,
or do you? I feel like it must have been, like, more.
I would think that she must have just been, like, in denial. Like, no, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. Like, I don't know. But, when you poop and you wash your hands, you could probably leave some poop particles behind.
On your hands?
Yeah.
Yeah, but well, who knows if she just ran them through the faucet.
Yeah.
But no, that brings up a very good point. Individual liberty versus the health and safety of the common good. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with the common good.
Yeah, same.
Even though it's a sacrifice to yourself, I think wearing a mask is not hard to do. It's annoying AF.
Yes. It's very annoying. It gives me mask-me.
Yeah. But I don't know. That's a good one. I never heard of her. Isn't that crazy?
So there was one time.
How did you even hear about her?
Well, I've just, like, always kind of, and, like, it's actually, like, a slur to, like, call somebody Typhoid Mary. Like, if they were, like, so I'll give you an example. 2 years ago, I got the flu. Okay. Yeah, it was 2018. I got the flu. I didn't know I had it the first couple of days. I thought I was just, like, had a cold or something, and I went on a Hinge date. Or Bumble, one of them, I don't know. And I was like the next day I found out I had the flu. And I was telling my mom about it. And she was like, Typhoid Mary. And I was like, what? And that's kind of how I learned about it. I've always kind of, like, known the name. But yeah, so, like.
Like, I've heard the name, but never really the context of it.
I don't know if I gave that guy the flu or not. I don't really care.
Probably not. Maybe you
did. Heard
did.
from him again.
I mean, shit.
His chest hair was popping out of his polo.
You can't have that chest hair popping.
Unless it's, like, really good chest hair.
Who is
Neve from Catfish has really
you're
good
obsessed with Neve. Neve, if you're listening, Emily is obsessed with you.
I vote for you every week on Dancing with the Stars.
Is that why you watch it?
And it's Carol Baskin.
Okay, I've never known you to watch Dancing with the Stars.
No, this is the first year. I watched it, like, in high school. It's the first year I've watched it in forever. But Neve's on it. Carol Baskin, but she got voted off. Fuck
Did
her.
she get voted off?
Yeah,
I was wondering how long she would last.
She was the worst dancer I've ever seen in my life.
That's intense because there's a lot of bad dancers.
Nelly, the rapper Nelly, is on there.
Yeah.
He's adorable. AJ McLean from the Backstreet Boys.
Okay.
He's on there. I'm trying to think of other people.
Maybe they're all spreading typhoid right now.
Maybe they are.
So typhoid is treatable.
Yes, now it's treatable. We have a vaccine. We have antibiotics. But
Question,
then we did not.
when did antibiotics get created?
I do not know.
Gwen, if you're listening to this, let me know. I guess we could just Google it. Because, like, what if she was in quarantine when an antibiotic had been created and she could have been let out of quarantine? But I also feel like if she really doesn't care that much and she can't even wash her goddamn hands, then put her in a quarantine. Put her in an island. She doesn't have to pay for her house. She doesn't have to pay for her electric. I'm assuming she doesn't, well, I don't know. Like, she doesn't have to pay for any of that.
So penicillin was discovered in 1928.
28?
Yeah. So no.
She died in 38.
Yeah.
Or 30 something, didn't you say?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yep. So that's the story of Typhoid Mary. Very sad story.
It's sad. A lot of people died.
A lot of people died.
Okay, wait. Only 3?
Yeah, they think 3 people died and 53 confirmed cases through her.
But I feel bad for all those people because I have definitely had diarrhea before. Mm-hmm. And it was probably the worst time of my life. Along with constipation. Both of those are single-handedly the 2 worst things.
I definitely have more diarrhea than I have constipation.
Who would have ever thought this would be our conversation on our podcast? When I said, Emily, let's start a podcast, who knew this is what we would talk about?
When I started taking a new medication,
oh, God. This is a diarrhea story?
No, it's a constipation story.
Okay.
Because I'm usually very regular.
Okay. Good to know.
And when I started this new medicine, I was like, I really thought I just couldn't go, and it was so miserable. So,
I remember that, because I said I had the same thing when I started my medication.
Yeah. So those of you that experience constipation, I feel for you.
Yeah. But Typhoid Mary apparently doesn't. No. She gives no shits.
She gives shit at all.
She gives none.
Yeah.
Well, good story, Emily.
Thank you.
I'm excited. All right, guys. Sorry we were kind of /eating during this podcast, but it was late. I had to stay late for a training at work. So we have to eat, as long as hopefully they wash their hands before they give us this food. Anyway, guys, updates. We are now on the YouTube.
We're YouTubes.
Yeah, we have 1 subscriber, and it's my sister. So go ahead and subscribe. Yeah, because the more subscribers we get, then eventually we can maybe put ads on our YouTube and make money. Also, we are on Patreon.
Yes.
And so we are actually going to, so for those that don't know, Patreon is a website where you can donate money to support the podcast, because having a podcast does cost us a little bit of money every month. And to get new equipment and things like that and whatever.
We want to give you quality content.
So, you can go to Patreon and donate however much you'd like. And we're actually going to work on creating little mini episodes and different content for you that you can access just on Patreon. Mm-hmm. So I think that's just go to patreon.com and type in the Dark Files podcast and it should pop up.
Yes.
Otherwise, if you have any topic suggestions, you can email us at thedarkfilespodcast@gmail.com, or you can text one of us personally if you have our phone numbers.
Yes, only if you have our phone numbers.
Well, I don't think they'd be able to text us otherwise, but okay.
And you can find us on Instagram at Dark Files Podcast or on Twitter at Dark Files Pod.
All right, Emily. So, in your case of typhoid diarrhea, Mary. No, just kidding. Okay, Emily, in the case of Typhoid Mary, what do we say?
We say
case closed. Stay spooky, peeps.
Yeah, it is spooky season.